Good evening, it's 8 o'clock. I'm Sally Baudet, live from Johannesburg. Your top stories this evening. The state provisionally withdraws charges against former Hawks head Anwar Dramat and former Gauteng Hawks boss Shadrack Sibiya in the Zimbabwe rendition case. Will he stay or will he go? Still no clarity from the presidency following Nene's admissions he was not truthful about his meetings with the Gupta family. And 2 people have died after a light aircraft crashed into a home in Warner Valley in Midrand today. Well, let's start here. The big question tonight, what is the future of our finance minister, Nhlanhla Nene? Lauded as the man who said no to approving a nuclear deal that could have bankrupted the country, he's now defending his political career and his integrity. At issue, his 2 different versions of events regarding his meetings with the connected Gupta family. Now, he's since issued an apology for being less than truthful, but today speculation that he's offered to resign. The presidency says they're not aware of this offer. 2 weeks before the midterm budget, our economy and our political landscape could really do without this uncertainty. Well, let's discuss this now with our political reporter, Aldrin Sampear. Aldrin, thank you so much for joining us on eNews. Let's start with that clip. It was an interview that Nhlanhla Nene did with our colleague Siphamandla Goge in April 2016. Okay.
Look, I bumped into them in public gatherings once or twice, but I've never had an engagement, and I've never been asked by them to do anything for them.
Bumping into is very different to what he said to the Zondo Commission last week, which was, I was there 4 times, I had tea. Why the need to be dishonest, do you think?
And here's the thing about this. Well, people have mostly been cherry-picking on how many times he has met the Gupta brothers or even bumped into them. What that insert reveals is that there are at least 4 inconsistencies. For one, now we know that not only did he bump into them, but he actually had official meetings with the Gupta family. And now we know that it was not once, it was not twice, it was several times that this took place. And it happened at the Saxon World compound of the Gupta family. And in that statement that he issued where he apologized, he even went as further saying that I should have actually done this meeting with an official from Treasury as it is customary, and that did not happen.
The EFF says they've been warning for a while he's not squeaky clean. A number of questions they've posed. One, that did he instruct the PIC while he was chair of the PIC to award a contract favouring the Guptas? Now, he's denied that, but given the inconsistency around his meetings and his bumping intos, surely that creates huge shadow. Yeah,
his integrity is already being brought into question. And of course, this issue around the PIC, which also involves his son and some money that they received from the PIC as well. And what the EFF is saying further in that statement, and even in the letter that they wrote to the president, is that you must fire this man immediately, and we have some more dirt on him, and we have warned you about him before.
What do you think the presidency is thinking? They have said that they've got no offer. They haven't seen any offer. You know, South Africa's so divided. You've got people saying, this is the man who saved us from a catastrophic nuclear deal. Let's overlook it. And you've got other people saying, no, this is problematic. This is not right. Because
it's such a key institution. It's Treasury, and you need somebody who's heading Treasury to be somebody who has been beyond reproach. And Nhlanhla Nene, quite certainly with his own version of events, has cast his own character in doubt as it stands at the moment. But as we know that it's all politics that's going to be playing out over the next few weeks. But one thing that we know for certain is that there's going to be a shift in the cabinet of President Cyril Ramaphosa because of the passing on of the late minister in environmental affairs. Some people, or some factions at least that I've spoken to in the ANC, are saying that they think that the president may use that opportunity to boot out some of those members of cabinet who have been implicated in state capture. But here's the other thing, Sally, is that if there are ministers in Cyril Ramaphosa's cabinet who may go and testify and implicate themselves, they say, what action will Cyril Ramaphosa take, and how he responds to this Nhlanhla Nene issue will certainly be an indication, and people are going to want to see consistency.
Oh, it's starting to look like a bit of a hot mess. Aldrin Sampear, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Well, President Cyril Ramaphosa certainly has a lot on his mind this evening. At the moment, he's delivering this year's annual Desmond Tutu International Peace Lecture in Cape Town. As we know, the Archbishop has been ill in hospital. Let's take a listen to a bite from that clip earlier.
So yesterday, as the Arch celebrated his 87th birthday, together with our icon here. We marveled at the generosity of spirit, the strength of character, and the love of humanity that he has exuded for as long as many of us, if not all of us, have known him. This lecture on peace, named in the honor of the Arch, is taking place exactly 2 weeks after the United Nations held a Nelson Mandela Peace Summit at its annual General Assembly. And this was a peace summit in which more than 100 heads of government and heads of state participated in honor of Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela.
That lecture underway this evening in Cape Town. That's a clip from a little earlier. Well, it's been a day of vindication for Anwar Dramat and Shadrach Sibiya and, yes, IPID head Robert McBride. Today, prosecutors formally and provisionally withdrew charges against the former Hawks head Dramat and the former Gauteng Hawks boss Sibiya. They were arrested and charged in 2016 along with Leslie Maluleke, who still faces prosecution. Well, to tell us all about this, and it's a very convoluted story, we have in studio Aaron Bates. Aaron, thank you for joining us. This goes back to 2010 and the rendition or handing back of a group of Zimbabweans to Zimbabwe. One of them subsequently died. Tell us more.
So these charges were brought against these two very senior Hawks officials and Maluleke. And the allegation was that when they were charged in March of 2016, it was because this had been kind of raised from the ground and used for political purposes. Now the state has said, based on the representations from Dramat and Sibiya, that they are provisionally withdrawing the charges against them. Maluleke, who also goes by the nickname Cowboy, and he was actually wearing a cowboy hat in court today, remains accused in this case. He faces charges of kidnapping, defeating the ends of justice, and contravening the Immigration Act. But he alleges that this all happened above board, and it was the South African police, whose paperwork shows that they did, in fact, hand these Zimbabwean accused over to the Zimbabwean police.
Let's have a listen to what Shadrach Sibiya had to say today.
I still believe that the charges are still hanging over our heads, when in fact we all know that these were trumped up charges. We were charged based on manufactured evidence, and I'm still repeating that this is manufactured evidence and there's no case against us. So I'm disappointed that actually the matter was not really thrown out as in the form of permanent stay of prosecution.
He looks very angry.
He is, Sally, and you asked before, you know, is this a vindication for them? In a way, the cloud cover over them has thinned, but it hasn't lifted, because it's not an acquittal here. Sibiya and Dramat could still be reinstated in terms of the charges.
Let's have a listen to what Robert McBride, who's the head of IPID, had to say today.
Not sure what recommendations they will make, but it would be necessary to review all state institutions that were attacked, were hollowed out and replaced by pliable officials and bureaucrats. That needs to be looked at. People who were inappropriately and irregularly appointed need to go. It's very simple. It's crunch time for our country. We need renewal. We need a new dawn. We can't still move forward with the people who were appointed to carry out nefarious activity to be still in the system. They need to go.
Certainly feels, from what Robert McBride says, that things are reaching a critical mass. There has been some move forward to remove the shadow over Sibiya and Dramat. Where do you think it's going next?
So we need to wait until the 12th of November when this case is back before the courts and Maluleke will again face those charges. And we may well find that the evidence in this case reveals some of what was going on. And to really kind of simplify things, Sally, in terms of the broader picture here and why we've heard from McBride, it's because he himself was suspended as IPID head because his department had produced a report saying the state should never have charged Dramat and Sibiya. And now IPID is saying, well, we too are vindicated because now the state has withdrawn charges against those two very people. So we're going to have to wait for the 12th of November to see what happens with Maluleke. But this whole matter has been alleged to have been cooked up by authorities, the police minister at the time, as well as the subsequent head of the Hawks, to basically corner people and finger Dramat specifically because at the time time, he was looking at the dockets of politically connected people. Which politically connected people? Well, most significantly, the president at the time and the matter of Nkandla. So Dramat and his co-accused say this is all a political cook-up to try and get us into trouble for trying to do the right thing.
It looks like slowly the dots are being joined. Thank you very much, Erin Bates. Well, other news now on a pilot and a gardener died today when a light aircraft crashed into a house in Midrand. The pilot of the plane and a man working in the garden where it crashed both died. Our reporter Detiro Selepa was on the scene shortly after the fatal accident.
The light aircraft crashed into the backyard of a home in the suburb of Midrand. Police and emergency services responded and found 2 fatalities.
This plane was with one pilot who happened to be female. In the yard where the plane crashed, there was a man who was waking. He was hit by the plane. Both the man who was waking as well as the pilot died at the scene.
Eyewitnesses described what they saw.
I just saw this plane descending and I was under shock and I just started screaming hysterically because I knew for a fact it was going to hit one of the houses.
I saw a plane go in front of me about 3 meters away from my vehicle. It went all the way up about 6 stories high and it turned around and just went straight and landed on its nose. I jumped out of my car, shouted at the gate. The lady opened for me. I ran inside to see if I could help somebody. I found a lady inside the plane. And the gardener that was in the garden, busy working, also got hurt.
The police have opened an inquest docket and the Civil Aviation Authority is also set to investigate the crash. Detiro Selepa, Midrand.
Still ahead on eNews, we'll take a look around the world. Another massive earthquake, this time in Haiti, claims the lives of at least 14. And Indonesian authorities expect the death toll after their massive earthquake to reach 5,000. And of course, business news with Mateo.
Well, an unavoidable issue. The rand weakened more than 1% against the dollar today as the finance minister's future hangs in the balance. We'll have that after this break.
Let's talk money now. Mateo Gripe, welcome back. Lovely to have you. Tell us about the banking summit that took place today.
Well, great to be back, Sally. The Banking Summit is basically a gathering of all the captains of industry within the sector. And really this time they're looking at the weakening of state institutions and how corruption has hit the sector as well. And, you know, they're not really mincing their words in how government has aided the state capture and also how the private sector itself has done that. We've seen in that currency corruption that happened last year as well, flagged by the Competition Commission. But interestingly, there was a mention about Nhlanhla Nene, and you know there was an opinion from the chairman of the Banking Association and the Nedbank of CEO Mike Brown, and he weighs in on the matter.
Well, certainly I can give you a personal view. I don't think there is a formal BSA view on that right now. But, you know, I think right now what you've got is information emerging. I think what's really important is what happened in those meetings. We still don't yet know. Did anything come out of those meetings that in itself was corruption? I don't think it is problematic in its own right just having met the Guptas. But what happened in those meetings will be absolutely vital. And certainly what South Africa doesn't need is to go through a process where effectively all the good guys resign as a result of meetings that they had, and the bad guys are left sitting on the sidelines without any consequences.
I'm not sure it's as simple as the good and the bad guys anymore, but that uncertainty is not good, particularly 2 weeks before the midterm, the budget policy. Yeah. How is the rand done today, and is it being affected by this uncertainty? Well,
you're definitely right, Sally. There's a lot of onlookers, and some of those are, of course, traders in the market. In terms of the currency, we saw it go down by more than 1% earlier this morning, actually touching around 14 Rand 99, about a 6-month low for the rand as well. So we're seeing that coming in, and there's a lot of onlookers in terms of who's going to take on that role. Could it be Mondli Kungubele, who is the deputy currently, or will it be a new campaigner?
Absolutely. Let's go quickly through the indicators. Let's have a quick whip through.
Well, a quick look at the markets today. There was a lot of weakening trade in global trade, and that affected the local market. The all share down by 0.35%. Industrials also in that bloodbath, while financials were affected, of course, by that weaker rand. And in mining shares, well, they were down by more than 1%, and platinum as well, down more than 1.5%, while resources was down close to 1%. Well, in terms of commodities, it's that Brent crude price that is the main focus there, down $83 per barrel there, while gold is at $1,186 an ounce, while platinum was also down at 0.33%. The rand, of course, weakening, and it's that conversation around who will become South Africa's next finance minister. Should Nhlanhla be stepping down? It's at 14 rand 84 against the dollar, at 17 rand 4 cents against the euro, and also quite weak against the pound at 19 rand 39 cents.
Quite a blue Monday. Thank you very much, Mateo Kharipe. Let's take a look at international news now. A magnitude 5.9 earthquake has struck the Haitian capital Port-au-Prince. At least 14 people have died. The island of Haiti is prone to earthquakes as it sits along a major fault line, the so-called Ring of Fire belt along the Pacific Ocean's basin. And the death toll after the Indonesian earthquake and tsunami could reach 5,000. Over 5,000. 1,900 bodies have been recovered so far, but authorities believe thousands more may be buried in mud after the soil liquefied during the quake. After the break, we're going to go to Joel at our weather centre for your live weather report. Hello, Joel. And then SpaceX lands a booster back at its California launch site for the first time. This means the rocket can be used again. Let's go down to Cape Town where Joel Guy has all the weather news. Hello, Joel. How's it looking?
Well, Sally, it continued to look and feel like summer this Monday across much of South Africa, with some thunder showers over parts of the Western Cape. Now, on Tuesday, we are going to start off the day with quite a bit of cloud across the eastern provinces. It will be mostly fine for the central sections. However, the west coast will see quite a bit of fog creeping in during the morning hours. And then later on in the day, it's going to become partly cloudy for much of western and central South Africa. It will stay pretty hot for parts of the Cape provinces, and so we have a warning for high fire danger conditions for much of the northern Cape as well as parts of the western and eastern Cape provinces. Then in the afternoon, we are going to see thunderstorms developing over western KwaZulu-Natal, spilling into western Mpumalanga and persisting over these parts of the country as we head into the evening. It's going to become mostly cloudy over the south coast in the evening, and we're going to be watching that cold front that is heading towards our shores. Now, here's a closer look at what you can expect for your part of the country. To be mostly sunny and pretty hot once again for much of the northern Cape. Upington and Priska shooting to around 37 degrees. A mostly sunny and hot day is forecast for the interior of the western Cape. It will be cooler for the coastal areas. Cape Town warming to around 23 degrees. We are also expecting a hot one for much of the eastern Cape interior. It will be manageable, however, along the coastal areas. Sunny and pleasantly warm weather can be expected for the KZN coastal areas, and we are going to see thunderstorms for the western parts of the province in the afternoon. Western Mpumalanga should also see isolated thunderstorms on Tuesday afternoon. It's going to be partly cloudy and warm to hot for much of the Limpopo province. Similar weather is forecast across the bulk of the northwest. In the Free State, we are also going to see patches of cloud overhead, thunderstorms for the eastern areas. Gauteng should be partly cloudy, dry and hot with highs in the upper 20s and lower 30s. Now, just quickly looking ahead to your Wednesday, we are going to see thunderstorms in Gauteng. It's going to be mostly cloudy along the south coast. The rest of the country will be mostly sunny and warm to hot. That's all from me for now, Sadie. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Joel Guy in Cape Town. And finally, the SpaceX mission has marked its 62nd flight of the Falcon 9 in style. Now, the rocket carried an Earth observation satellite into space and for the very first time landed a first stage booster back at its California launch site. Now, this, of course, means it can be used again. To recap your top stories, the state provisionally withdraws charges against former Hawks head Anwar Dramat and former Gauteng Hawks boss Shadrack Sabia in the Zimbabwe rendition case. 2 people have died after a light aircraft crashed into a home in Warner Valley, Midrand today. And that's your news this Monday night.